Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Hot Girl Math. I'm Mystic Brew, founder of Return to Self, where I help you remember who you were before the world taught you who to be. As you may know, if you've been following the series, we've been time traveling a bit, and today's video is going to focus on 2018. Now, before I even get into the nitty-gritty details of the year 2018, I just gotta let you know, I don't have it today. I am here doing my best week to week. As you may know, a woman's hormones fluctuate, and this is one of those weeks I don't have it. But I'm here because solopreneur life, and also I love doing this. But just know that today's energy might be a little different. And the reason I'm sharing this with you, even though it's technically none of your business, is because we need to normalize this. Some days I will be Mystic Brew here with the news, the energetic news. Other days it will be this. I got my sweats on, I got my notes that I haven't even had time to review, so it's going to be like we're looking at this for the first time together. And I may be a little sassier than usual. You might like it, actually. We'll see. Either way, we are going to talk about 2018 today to see all of the astrological, numerological? No, that can't be a word. The numerology, we're going to pull some cards, we're going to look at history, we're going to look at pop culture, and we're going to do some hot girl math and put these energetic equations together to see how it was reflected in your own shadow work journey and what the cosmos were trying to tell us. Let's begin. As you know, we start off with some numerology. So if you watched the last episode, then you know that 2017 was a 1 year. New beginnings, whether you were ready or not. So you may logically be like, oh yeah, 2018, it's a 2 year. And that's really good math, but not great hot girl math, because yes and no, 2018 is actually an 11 year. And when it comes to numerology, 11 is not a number that we just pass on by. It is one of the master numbers. So yes, it is infused with the energy of 2 because it singles down to 2, but we also look at the number 11. So 2018 reduces first to the number 11, which is a number of illumination, intuition, heightened sensitivity, and spiritual revelation. It carries an almost electric charge. So when there is an 11 essence, things are lit up, they're exposed, they're made visible. I always like to think of the number 11 like 2 pillars of a gate that's being opened. It's like an entrance into everything that you need to be exposed to in that time. Now, as I mentioned, if we were to reduce it to a single digit, it would be a 2. So we're not going to neglect the 2. We're going to add it into the mix, hot girl math. So we have that 11 energy and the 2 energy. The 2 underneath it speaks of duality, of relationship, cooperation, and also tension between opposing forces. So this is not a time that's necessarily best for moving fast or acting alone, but it is a year for listening, sensing, and deciding what you truly are building and with whom. And funny enough, 2018 was when I released my first book, Let That Shit Go, A Journey to Forgiveness and Understanding Love. No, that's not the title. Let That Shit Go, A Journey to Forgiveness, Healing, and Understanding Love, available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Okay, now if we look at the Chinese zodiac, 2018 was the year of the Earth Dog. So the dog is the 11th sign of the Chinese zodiac. So again, heightened energy around the numerology of this year. And when it comes to the essence of the dog, it's sensitive, it's practical, and it's loyal. Dog years are said to favor conservative moves, and are a time for prioritizing emotional connections, but also emphasizing trustworthiness and loyalty. So when you start diving into your own 2018, you may want to reflect on the most important relationships during that time, or even your perspective on relationships, what was coming up for you at that time. The Earth Dog is also patient. It waits to take action only when it seems right. So very contradicting to the energy with the Fire Rooster with 2017. The dog is also famous for sniffing out what is hidden. Love that. And when combined with that illuminating 11 energy, 2018 was a really great year to surface what has been buried. And this is another theme we're noticing already with our time traveling. A lot of excavation, a lot of digging in the dirt, a lot of being like, what's over here? What's in this corner that I've neglected for thousands of years? Let's take a look. Now, when we talk about astrology, one of the main transits for 2018, which actually started at the end of 2017, was Saturn moving into Capricorn. Now, some of you may know, if you're familiar with astrology, that there is planet rulership over signs. Capricorn and Aquarius both have the traditional rulership of Saturn. So when Saturn moves into one of its home signs, it's comfortable. You know, it's kind of like when you are at a friend's house. Say all the other planets are these different types of friends. Some friends' houses, it's almost like home. You're comfortable, but it's still not your home. Or you're somewhere else and you're like, oh, I cannot wait to leave. You know that feeling? I'm sure you do. Anyway, Saturn in Capricorn is like, finally, I'm back in my own bed. You know what I'm saying? So it's very comfortable. And for that reason, it operates at maximum potency. It's very strong. So with Saturn entering this home sign at the close of 2017 and then really settling in for all of 2018, there is a big reality check here around practical matters. So work, money, time management, very Saturnian, Capricornian. I'm just going to start making up words because honestly, that's what we're doing anyway. Types of energy. And so this was a year that really may have brought up efficiency, honest effort, ambition, focus, organization, and it may have paid off really well for you if that was true for you. But Saturn will also bite you in the ass when you start cutting corners, because again, we've talked about Saturn quite a bit here, which is not completely surprising considering it's my chart ruler, but there is a lot of Saturnian influence in what we're seeing unfold today. So again, it makes sense that we're also kind of tracking Saturn's movements for the last 10 years. Now, Saturn, like I've mentioned in other videos and will continue to tell you, is not the type of planet that's like, oh yeah, sure, take the easy route. Yeah, you're cutting corners, that's fine. No. It will kick you in the ass and will make you start all over. So during this year, it was really important to pay attention to details, to stay organized, to read the fine print, and to really know the limitations of your plans. Now, that's a more personal look. Collectively, this transit translated into governments, corporations, and powerful individuals being held accountable or attempting to avoid it, which we've seen a number of times. This was also the year that Uranus entered Taurus. So Uranus, again, planet of surprises, revolutionary acts, upheaval, sudden change, moved into Taurus, the slowest sign of the earth signs, the slowest sign of the zodiac, which also rules material experience. That's why it's a very sensual sign. So it rules finance, it rules banking, material possessions. And when Uranus entered Taurus on May 15th of 2018, where it would stay on and off until April of this year. So do you already see how we're connecting it to this year? We are just now about to end what started then. This meant major change in the finance department globally. It affected us individually because it's connected. And perhaps you're still experiencing that. As always, look at your chart if you know how to get your chart. If not, look on my Substack. you can see what house Taurus rules for you. And that area of your life was the area of life that was most affected by Uranus's energy. And it's about to leave and enter the next house. This is also when there was some cryptocurrency volatility, there were trade wars, there was wealth inequality that was coming up to the surface more than ever. And again, it can all trace back to this astrological shift. There were also 5 eclipses in 2018, 4 on the Leo Aquarius axis, which again, we are returning to the Leo Aquarius axis this year, but flipped. And then there was 1 in Cancer and Capricorn. So again, eclipses mark really powerful gateways. We just had one at the top of March for beginnings and endings. This provides plenty of opportunity to let go of the old and receive the new, to really reflect, to see what's no longer working, and to see what can be implemented. The July 27th, 2018 total lunar eclipse in Aquarius was the longest lunar eclipse of the 21st century. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out when the eclipses return in Leo and Aquarius this year. Something else to note is all 5 outer planets were either in earth or water signs during this year. We had Jupiter in Scorpio, Saturn in Capricorn, Uranus in Taurus starting in May, Neptune in Pisces, and Pluto in Capricorn. So Pluto and Saturn were doing a number on Capricorn placements. You probably recall this. 2018 was very feminine. It was deeply receptive. It was a very introspective year because of all that earth and water energy. This also indicated really slow and steady growth rather than fast action, which correlates to the numerology in the Chinese zodiac. And it was a good time to get quiet and listen and be clear about what you are building. Now, Chiron was in Pisces, as we talked about in the last video, and in 2018, specifically April 17th of 2018, Chiron moved into Aries. So this was the first time in approximately 50 years that there was this major shift from the collective Piscean wounds of suffering and sacrifice and lack of boundaries and substance abuse into Aries, which now focused on wounds around identity, courage, and self-worth. This is still going on. And again, this year is when Chiron will move from Aries into Taurus, if I'm not mistaken. It might be next year, actually. Don't quote me. Double check that. Either way, it's coming up. This wounded healer entered the sign of the self, and during 2018, it was a question of where have you been injured in simply being who you are? I feel like this was also, whether it was unconsciously or not, when we really started to tap into the importance of authenticity, of vulnerability, of identifying whether or not we have been wearing a mask. And lastly, as it was mentioned in the last video, Jupiter was in Scorpio and continued in Scorpio in 2018. So again, deep excavation of hidden powers, secrets, and the shadow through most of the year before it moved into Sagittarius in November. And again, when it moved into Sag in November, which we'll talk more about in the next video, this was a lot of energy pointing towards expansion, truth-seeking, and a hunger for meaning and philosophy. For national news in 2018, you may recall there was an expelled student who entered Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and opened fire, killing 17 people and wounding 17 others. At the time, this was the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. And I want you to make note of this because if I'm not mistaken, every single video I have done so far talking about the news from 2016, there was some record of an event being the deadliest of the time. So not only are we overachievers when it comes to death, we are consistently breaking records each year when it comes to something that we really shouldn't be really proud about. Make note of that. What made 2018 different was the response to this shooting. The survivors refused to be silent. On March 24th, the student-led March for Our Lives demonstration in Washington, D.C. became one of the largest protests in American history. That's a great statistic. A sad situation to spark it, But already you're seeing that energy that we were talking about earlier, as far as refusing to stay silent when it comes to matters that deserve a voice, that need to be brought up, that need to come out of the hidden shadows into the light. Something else that happened in 2018 was a data mining scandal involving Cambridge Analytica and their sale of data from approximately 50 million Facebook users. It was quite a shitty time for Mark Zuckerberg. He lost $119 billion in value in a single day. Trump also signed an executive order in 2018 to suspend his zero-tolerance family separation policy in June after people basically let him know, what the fuck are you doing? However, thousands of undocumented children were never reunited with their families even after the policy was suspended. Where are the children? What happened to them? Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed to the Supreme Court in October after a nationally televised hearing in which Christine Blasey Ford testified about alleged sexual assault. I just need you to grasp this for a second. This man was appointed to the Supreme Court of this country, which makes really important decisions. Not sure if you know that. After a woman was very vocal about perhaps one of the most vulnerable and traumatic experiences of her life, to let people know the abuse she experienced at the hands of a certain man. And this country said, okay, put him on the Supreme Court. That's when you see the commotion, when you realize women are angry, it's this. It's like we put ourselves in a position to share things that we would rather never think about again. And instead of letting us know we're safe, we're protected, that you care, you appoint them to one of the highest positions within the country that makes laws, that is part of creating the infrastructure of what is legal in this country. Do you not see how that is so entirely fucked up and should be illegal? And the fact that this happened after the whole Me Too movement had just erupted, it's like you showcase this, what can feel like performative allyship. You create space to finally, we're going to hold people accountable for their horrible actions, their crimes against humanity. And then in the next breath, let's put them on the Supreme Court. Makes no sense to me, but what do I know? Speaking of women, international news, on June 24th, 2018, Saudi women were finally allowed to drive. In 2018, Saudi women were finally allowed to drive, and this was because there was a culmination of campaigning by activists and feminists that finally put an end to an age-old ban. Listen, I told you I'm on my cycle, and with these headlines and this news, are you aware that women are people? I just want to be clear, because the math is not mathing. It is not hot girl mathing. It is not mathing. It just doesn't make sense. Now, if we look to pop culture news, 2018 was really big with its release of Black Panther in February. This was the film directed by Ryan Coogler, which quickly became a cultural phenomenon for many reasons that transcended just cinema. It was a milestone in the representation of African American culture and diversity in Hollywood. It featured a largely Black cast and celebrated African culture, and it highlighted themes of social justice and empowerment, becoming the third highest grossing film in U.S. history at the time. R.I.P. to Chadwick. Beyoncé's headline performance at Coachella Baychella became a defining cultural event of the year. You may recall her performance included a marching band and dancers and honored HBCUs and had seamless choreography with political messages resonating with audiences worldwide. It definitely set a standard for new live music events. It also gave a lot of entrepreneurs and entertainers a tip into document this, because then you also get a deal with Netflix. A behind the scenes look of what it looks like to create something like this, which was a very smart business move. And the statistic that is quite jarring here is that this was the first performance by a Black woman to headline Coachella. 2018, the first performance by a Black woman to headline Coachella. When did Coachella start? Hold on. When did Coachella start? I was going to say, when did Coachella become a thing? 1999. I don't know if you just heard my neck crack when I did that, but that is crazy. Similarly, Childish Gambino, also known as Donald Glover, released This Is America, which made headlines and topped the charts. This was a music video that depicted joy, dance, and distraction layered over gun violence and chaos. This became one of the most analyzed pieces of art of the year because it was visceral, uncomfortable, and yet impossible to ignore. I still remember that video quite well. When it came to more international news that was also pop culture and also quite historic, we have the royal wedding on May 19th, 2018. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got married, and of course it was important for its own reasons back then, but it's especially important now looking back, knowing what transpired within their relationship. That is quite a beautiful illustration of what it looks like to break away from continued loops, continued energy, continued narratives that you carry over through the family until someone says enough. And that was not welcomed. And yet they're a beautiful illustration of what that looks like. And that started in 2018 with their wedding. It was quite the beautiful ceremony and obviously addressed a lot about transformative power when it comes to love. We lost some pretty big names in 2018, including Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, and Aretha Franklin. As you know, Anthony Bourdain was a host of his own food travel series, although the food to me was like the least important part of it. I think anyone who resonated with Anthony Bourdain and learned from him loved his humanity and what he brought into everything that he did. I know he was a model for me in that way, and I hope to continue to create content in a way that he did. He was a beautiful example of what it looks like to enter a place you don't know with people you don't know and a culture you don't know and humanize it. And remember that despite all of this stuff that makes us different, underneath it all, we are very similar. We are one. And he brought that humanity into every interaction, into every tasting, into every experience that you got to witness. And I would say that's what made him Anthony Bourdain. It wasn't so much about the food. It was about the conversation. It was about his energy. And it was about the constant reminder that he gave us that at the end of the day, any part of the world you go to, we are all human. And for that reason, we are connected. And perhaps that needs to be nourished and nurtured more. Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade's death really sparked a lot of conversation around mental health, around depression, and around the hidden suffering of those who appear the most alive in the world. That's another sort of continuous thing we tend to see, is a lot of really great artists in their own right, whatever that might be, who serve the world in such a beautiful way, have such darkness that they never let anyone know they are dealing with, and the toll that that can take. The Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, transitioned in August, and she was hailed not only for her talent, but for her lifelong demand for RESPECT, a woman of my own heart, some damn respect. as a woman, as an African American woman, as an entertainer, as a person in this world, she never let us forget that respect is important. So when it comes to the themes that we are seeing transpire with everything that was sort of bubbling up in 2018 and coming to the surface, we see that there was an illumination of some hidden structures. Now, again, we have that energy with the master number 11. We have the energy with the dog. We have all that Saturnian energy also looking over this year, Jupiter in Scorpio. And we saw some of this happen with the data leak with Cambridge Analytica and how democracy has been quietly corrupted with the data mining. We saw this with the Kavanaugh hearings and the private violations once they turned into public record. And how was there accountability? I would say no. We saw this with Black Panther. We saw this with This Is America. We saw it with the marches. We saw a lot of people, systems, structures coming together in a way that they knew how to let the world know this is what's going on. Do you see it? And now that I'm even bringing this up, what are you going to do with this information? Which kind of takes us to the next theme that we saw. There was a sort of handoff. It felt like there was a baton toss at some point from the older generation to the younger generation. There was a lot more energy coming from the younger generation that were willing to do something. Just do something about this information that's being exposed. We saw it with the Parkland students who didn't just grieve, they organized, they spoke, they marched, they refused to be managed or pacified, they refused to be unheard when they witnessed such a devastating and traumatic event. Gen Z's political arrival at the March for Our Lives was a seismic cultural moment. Gen Z said, hey guys, we're here, and you may not know this, but we're not going to stand for this bullshit. You may be okay to look away. You may be desensitized enough to not care anymore, but we're still fresh. We're here. We got energy. And I love that for them. I love that for all of us. This was also a year that offered vision of power rooted in a younger Afrofuturistic imagination with Black Panther. It gave us a sort of vision of what does it look like when this generation is in power? Are we going to repeat the same pain, the same trauma, the same stories, or can we find ways to navigate this experience differently? And lastly, we saw what it cost to carry the weight of everything that's been unprocessed. Earth energy is heavy, it's dense energy, it's matter. So it's dense. And unprocessed grief, which funny enough has been such a theme even in this last week. So maybe that relates to you as well. It's partially why I feel like I was drawn to wear green. It's the heart chakra. There's a lot of unprocessed grief that's been coming up recently, and maybe it started in 2018. Maybe that was the year where there was this overwhelming domination with all that earth and water energy astrologically, just very heavy, slow, accumulating over time. And that mirrored that year's emotional texture. There was the deaths of Bourdain and Spade and Aretha Franklin, representing people who seemed really fully alive and who shocked a culture, but still largely unwilling to talk about the hidden suffering that goes on. There was still that opioid crisis that we talked about in the last video. That was still an issue in 2018. Climate grief was also a huge mainstream emotional experience. And there was just this rare sort of contradicting experience in 2018 of having to face everything that's being held that hasn't been dealt with, but then there is this sort of shimmering light at the end of the tunnel. You just don't know how far that tunnel is, that's calling you to be like, hey, there is hope here. You're being given glimpses of that, but you got to deal with this. Before we get into your shadow work prompts for this year, for 2018, which again, I offer more in-depth prompts for those who really want to dive deeper on my Substack linked below, let's pull a card of activation to see what 2018 was activating for us collectively. Please use these cards to reveal what the collective activation was for 2018. Please and thank you. Oh, they always love to fly far away, making me work for it. 1 second. All right. We got coherence, the number 13. The frequency of coherence supports our ability to harmonize the frequency of the heart with the frequency of the mind for an optimal ability to create the reality that we desire. Ooh. Ooh. Excuse me. I know I burped during the card part last video. It is what it is, all right? Just you'll get used to it. All right, let's see what the guidebook has to say already. Love that it's centering the heart because we just talked about that. And look at the sun is now shining in right on my heart space. Oh, don't. I'm emotional already. I will start crying. Okay, coherence can be described as a state of harmony, union, or connection in the new energy and as a reference to the human being. Coherence has to do with a state in which the mind and the heart harmoniously flow together. Whether we are functioning as an individual, a community, or a group, the new energy is asking us to find balance between our thinking and our feeling. We can no longer rely solely on our analytical mind, nor can we just have our feelings guide the way. Every part of us has to come together in a harmonious, coherent state of being. Only then can we navigate these new energies to become multidimensional human beings that are in control of their reality. To be powerful manifestors, it is imperative to not only set clear intentions with our mind, but to have our emotional state of being, with the heart as its center, in alignment as well. When mind and heart come together in perfect unison, when intention saturates every layer of our being, every cell of our body, and every thought of our minds, we become unstoppable creators of our own reality. I mean, if that was not the perfect way to sum up what we were just saying about having to universal love, number 44 at the bottom, what's at the top? Divine feminine. Stop it. I love when this happens. We were just talking about this. First of all, we talked about all that earth and water energy. Hello, emotions. Hello, nurturing. Earth and water. It's a reason these elements go well together. When it rains, things bloom, things wash away. The earth is thirsty. She needs some water. She needs care. She needs emotion. When you cry, that unprocessed grief, you're releasing it. That's also nurturing and nourishing your temple, your earth, your home. And finding that coherence between the mind and the heart so that you can make harmonious, balanced decision. That is going to be the key with everything, because the decisions we have been making are hardly ever in unison with these two things that we have often pitted against each other, which is why I love doing what I do, because as I tell you, I bridge the gap between your psyche and your spirit, which is your mind and your heart. They are meant to come together, not be at odds. So let's talk about your shadow work journey in 2018. What was lit up that you would rather not see? What were you being called to step into that you kept denying? And what grief, fear, or exhaustion were you performing your way through? Again, look at old photos, look at journal entries, try to tap back into that energy in 2018 in whatever way makes sense for you. That will help you feel back to what was going on at that time, because it still exists. Everything is happening right now. So again, if you are curious and you want to dive deeper, On my Substack for my paid subscribers, I will share many more prompts to help you dive deeper into each section so you can really get into the nitty-gritty of what shadow work may have been coming up for you, because you're doing it whether you're conscious of it or not. And as always, thank you for sharing this time with me, for allowing me to just be myself on my cycle, in my mood. I'm just glad I didn't start crying because it's been an emotional week. So I appreciate you creating this space for me to just be and to share the things that I'm passionate about. And hopefully you are starting to become passionate about it too, because these are the clues from the cosmos. This is the language of the universe. And it is time that we start to listen to what it's been saying all along. Until next time.